We are live. We are live. I'm coming at you with five. Welcome again to another edition of Gavin Reshaw Presents here on channel G Bluetooth 786 on Gavin Reshaw Presents on Facebook and on Twitter, on Periscope, wherever you are. I hope you're blessed and doing safe right now. We are about to get this movie review started. We are going to be talking about the films American Skin and One Night in Miami. So you guys get ready. There is a spoiler alert. I repeat, spoiler alert. So if you don't want me to break the news, you haven't seen the movie yet, and you're interested in seeing it, please look away. Please look away. Please go away, I should say. I'm not going to get ready to talk about it just yet, but we will be talking about it in the next couple of minutes. Coming into you on this Martin Luther King Day. And hope you all are out there. Let's see who we got in the chat. We got a few people on Facebook, I'm sure. We got people on YouTube channel. What's up, everybody? Something about that breakdown. Yeah. Um, um, all right. Please hit that Cash App, Gavin Reshaw Esquire. You see that right there. You also got Google Pay at gavin.grich1@gmail.com. That's one of the best ways to get and reach me. You can also email me there if you have topics that you would like for us to discuss on the platform. So we're going to get started in a minute. All right. What's up, Rosalind? Oh, yeah, yeah. How y'all doing this Dr. King Day? All right. Let's see here. Good evening, friends. We are live. We are live again. Welcome all of you to another episode of Gavin Reshaw Presents. I have the sign. I'm trying to warn all of you because tonight we're going to be doing a review of two movies that I've seen. This will be I guess a 30 minutes to an hour. Well, I'm not, if I say 30 minutes to an hour, it means I'm going to be rambling. But we're going to be doing reviews on two movies that have dropped on this MLK Day. First off, Happy King Day to all. I don't really even say that, but today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We celebrate his birthday. Actually, was this past Friday. He shares a birthday with my family, with some members of my family. My nephew is actually was born on January 15th. So he might be a future revolutionary, or he might be a quarterback because he shares a birthday with Drew Brees, who I'm not going to even comment. That was just god awful in that playoff performance. I mean, uh, at this point, they're saying it's going to be Brees is going to retire. I think he will. Uh, and I think he should because he's just at that age when you're talking about 42 years old and you just can't throw a ball downfield. It's just hard. And, he's carried the team as far as he could go. We've had a Super Bowl appearance. We certainly could have had at least three more appearances, certainly with the in 2011 when they had the highest ranked offense in the NFL, Graham and Darren Sproles. You also had a Hall of Fame offensive line, Pro Bowl offensive line with guys like Carl Nix and I'm trying to think. I think was Charles Bentley still there? I remember Hakeem. We had a bunch of players on that offensive line uh, that you know Pro Bowls, Pro Bowlers. Let me see if I can look it up. That roster. Uh, that was the year that the Saints actually he broke Jari Evans, Carl Nix. That's what I was thinking of. Jamon Bushrod. You had Zach Streif. Uh, those guys. And it ended sadly with a we lost to the number 2 seed, and which was the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a seesaw game. And then, of course, the other game that they should have won was that 2018 NFC Championship. Uh, I don't even want to talk about the Minneapolis Miracle in 2017. That was just a complete fluke. But that's a hell of a way to end your career like that. And, you know, I think one of the reasons why Brady was able to win a lot of those Super Bowls and go to the Super Bowl often, well, you got to look at that division he played in the AFC East. Buffalo and Buffalo and Miami and the other team that's in New York Jets. They have struggled as franchises uh, over the last decade with regards to draft busts, poor management by general managers, lack of talent, obviously, and bad coaching decisions. All of that is combined. Poor free agency. Not building up drafts. Those are one of the issues. And so Brady was always there in the running. That's why they always had home field advantage. In part. Donald says they could have used Jameson a little bit more. Well, I mean, on that trick play, that actually is what got them the lead back on that touchdown. So certainly they could have done that. And the defense played pretty good. You give them short field advantage when they come off the field and you turn over the ball 4 times. And Jared Cook, I mean, he's got to go. Jared Cook can go with Drew Brees. I would not pay him. I wouldn't pay him in pennies. I wouldn't pay him in a Coca-Cola. You know, Jared Cook was bad. He had that fumble. I mean, he's underachieved a little bit, but uh, yeah. So at any rate, though, uh, great career. Of course, I may not like his politics. City that I have to say it in 2005, 2006, the New Orleans Saints were about to leave New Orleans. There was talks about that and going to San Antonio and bringing him and Sean Payton in. They really changed this franchise around because I remember even as a kid how bad the Saints were. Where they would wear the brown paper bags to the games and they would black out all the home games because they could never sell out, things of that nature. That's just how bad it was with the Saints. And for years, never winning a playoff game. We only had one playoff win, and that was under Jim 6 years before Sean Payton came. So that was a whole year, I mean, decades of losing. And, 40 years later, when Peyton comes in, they turn the whole thing around. I mean, 2009 season obviously is the best season we had so far. But, it was, you look at it, they underachieved. Nevertheless, that's just the stuff that was going on this weekend. Of course, today again is Martin Luther King Day. You guys should check out a video that I did on my YouTube channel. It was on Patreon, but I will be up. Talked about the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., why he was killed, and the effect of that even today. Uh, because they try to focus on Martin Luther King. Of course, the things that you will hear is "I have a dream, I have a dream," but of course, uh, Dr. King even woke up from that dream and saw a nightmare in the awakening. Especially in his last few years of his life, he started to move more and more towards economic justice and also speaking out on foreign issues, particularly the Vietnam War. Look up why I'm opposed to the Vietnam War or why I oppose the Vietnam War. And that was a speech that he did a year to the date of his assassination. He did that on April 4th, 1967. And he was 38 years old at that time. But yeah, that was one of the things that got Dr. King killed. And he delivered that speech at the Riverside Church in New York City. But they don't talk about this Dr. King. You know, we get a watered down version, 1963, I Have a Dream. He also talked about getting our check. He talked about reparations. And that was really where Dr. King's, the reason why Dr. King was assassinated was because he got to a point where he could determine foreign policy, as what Dick Gregory said. As a matter of fact, I did an interview with Dick when I was writing my book on Katrina, and Dick, I still have those recordings, so I probably need to share those with you all because that's the type, and I wouldn't charge y'all or charge anybody. It's just something I'd put on the internet uh, just because Dick Gregory was that type of person. He was not someone that looked for fame and fortune. He looked for what was right and doing for others. He knew the difference between right and wrong. So uh, I miss him immensely. But he talked about that date when Dr. King was killed, and he remembered it exactly. So uh, so definitely, uh, you guys look up those speeches, and I'm going to post the actual video link that you can go and look at the video live. It's on Patreon, and you guys could check that out. But it is a great video to look at, you know, talking about the assassination of one Martin Luther King Jr. And I don't know why I can't. I'm sorry, I'm actually here. Okay, I see. I got to click on that. I'm actually going to share that with you all. It'd be cool if you guys want to. You could actually subscribe to the Patreon as well, because the goal, of course, is to move away from YouTube eventually. But let us get into it. We have waited long enough. We will be talking about it. So there's the link in the comment section. So we are talking about, let's start with American Skin. We are doing a movie review. So, guys, again, spoiler alert. Now, this was a film that came from our brother, Mr. Nate Parker. And of course, Nate Parker is starting his comeback from the Birth of a Nation when it was sabotaged by these rogue liberals, these crazy left wing lunatics, these pork chop feminists, as Dr. Randy Shorts described. What's up, brother Derek? And hold on 1 second. I'm trying to see if this will load. Okay, here we go. This is a trailer for the film. You guys have seen it, American Skin. Now, this stars, of course, Nate Parker. That's the trailer for it. And he plays a Marine veteran named Lincoln Jefferson. In the film, Lincoln's son, sorry. So Nate Parker's son his name is Jaden Jefferson. You know, they get stopped by the police. Again, spoiler alert, guys, if you don't want to hear it, there's a spoiler alert. But he gets stopped by the police and for a traffic violation, supposedly. And While at this traffic stop, he's ordered to get out the car, which he complies. He's very compliant. His son is recording the incident on his phone while another officer is frisking him, and that other officer is on the side by the car, passenger side where his son is. And at some point during the film, when he drops his phone and picks it back up, the officer draws his weapon and orders him out of the car. And the kid still holds the phone. The officers, of course, he's escalating the situation with the gun in the kid's face and screaming. And eventually, you guys can figure out what happens to the son. If you've seen the trailer for American Skin, and I'll just play it briefly. And this, of course, I do not own the copyrights to this. This is only being shown for news purposes only, and to offer commentary on this very document. Of course, they have to play an ad on IMDb.
Come on, Layla. Not now.
Time to get going, Layla.
Not now.
Hey, are you coming to Happy Hour?
Not now.
Now, when you're ready, Hiscox is there for you. Hiscox, protecting business dreams since 1901.
All right, so here's a trailer.
You remember me?
How you doing tonight?
Doing well, officer.
Can I see your driver's license, registration, and insurance, please?
Of course. My license is right here, my wallet. It's all right, son. You remember the night in July?
Hands up!
Hey! Wait! Put the phone down! Put that phone!
I
It's
know,
a
write it down.
phone! It's a cell phone!
phone.
It's just a cell phone!
You knew he was unarmed.
Push the car and put your hands in the air!
Officer, please, he's just a kid.
You pointed your gun at him.
Okay, get out of the car, son. Easy.
You pulled the trigger.
Put the phone away! Put the phone away!
The grand jury determined that no probable cause exists to file any charges against Officer Randall.
This is my son. This is my little boy. You took that from me. The world took that from me. Today we make that right. Hear me when I say this, because I'm only going to say it once. Don't stop filming.
Just give up now.
Why are we the only people in this country that are expected to do things without violence?
I didn't mean to kill your son!
What you did. I just want justice. That's all I want. This is your jury, the deciders of your fate. Today, you will be tried for the murder of my son. You scared? Are you afraid?
So that was the trailer for the movie. So you guys probably have seen it already, but I wanted to show it for anybody that wasn't familiar. But so in the movie, of course, his son is murdered by the cop. Now, from judging by the trailer in the film, and the film is shot essentially in a documentary style. They have some young filmmakers, black filmmakers, who come to his house and ask Jefferson about his son, things about him that night. And it is interlooped with different shots where and clips where of young Jaden when he was did I say Jaden? I think that was the kid's name, yeah. Or of the son, whether it's clips of the son, but also I may get their names butchered, but also uh of him interacting with his son and regards to how that conversation about being stopped by the police. Now, one scene, and again, spoiler alert, that was interesting in the film was where his son is doing a video chat with, I guess, his best friend, talking about the right to resist police officers. And you can have a right to fight back against an unlawful arrest. I'm paraphrasing. And so uh, Nate Parker's character, who is a former Marine veteran and uh, and also a janitor, he starts talking to his son about it and catches them. And eventually he argues him down, tells him, no, if you get stopped, do not resist. And but dad, he's saying, Daddy, it's in the law. Dad, it's in the law. We can do this. He said, yeah, that may be true, but it's different for us. I want you to survive the encounter. And that is something essentially that every parent, black parent, goes through when they have the talk with their child because cops, and we're speaking about police officers in general, and white America in general, have a view of black people that is not very friendly. We already know that. And so his character warns his son about surviving the encounter, how to interact, and so forth. And you see it from the trailer that the Nate Parker character was doing that, but that didn't stop them from killing his son. So, of course, in the film, the prosecutor, the attorney general, the grand jury decides not to indict. There's a rally, there's protest, and some time later there are riots, and they get uh, the actor is Captain Eugene. Well, the character is Captain Eugene Morris. The actor is Wolfgang Bodison. By the way, performances by the cast were great. I thought they did a great job. Acting wise, I thought the script was great. Now, I'm giving you my pros, and I'm going to give you my cons. My pros with it, of course, are the performances. I thought the direction was great by Nate Parker. I certainly thought the screenwriting, the script, the dialogue was great. Omari Hardwick is also in the film. The casting was pretty good. Uh, Ghost, Omari Hardwick, Ghost from Power, he was in it. And so I enjoyed the performances. Now, within the film, obviously after the indictment, and this is interesting, the police chief, played by Wolfgang Bodson. Bodson, by the way, was the Black Marine veteran, the Black Marine in A Few Good Men that was put on trial. If y'all remember him, that movie, A Few Good Men from the 90s. Uh, we're the 90s babies up in here, 90s kids. Okay. Yeah, that's him. So he plays the police chief, and he the house essentially trying to get goes to the mother, uh, the mother, to try and get her to calm the riots. Now, I'm glad Nate Parker had that scene in the film, because we know whenever these things occur, the first thing for for these police officers, for these chiefs, for these superintendents, whenever there's a riot that breaks out, the first thing they want to do is squash the riots, and they will go to, and no disrespect to the ladies, but it's true, they go to a member of the family, preferably situations. We see the mother speaking, whether it has been Trayvon Martin, although his father was certainly a part of that trial as well. But she's been the one that makes, I know, most of the rounds. Whether it's been uh, Freddie Gray's mom, uh, a bunch of others from Tamir, even to Ramir Rice's mom. Although she has been on her A game, like she's called out many of these leaders, including Barack Obama, and she's called out LeBron James. But most of the times when we see these, we see quirk fest and quirk offs at these rallies and protests, and that was not in this film. They didn't focus on that. And of course, her nephew is arguing with the police chief, calling him an Uncle Tom and sell out because he was bucking his eyes. The chief said, "You got to stop the violence. We need to pray for peace." And sure enough, she does urge, they bring the press out to her. And Jefferson's is watching this, and as well as his blood brother, as he calls it, Umari Hartwick's character, because they both served in Afghanistan in the Marines. And so they're close. So it's almost like Jaden was like his nephew. The boy was practically like a nephew to him. And eventually, Nate Parker's character decides to get justice and goes with him. And they go inside, of course, to the police headquarters where they hold a mock trial. They, of course, hold everyone hostage. And they order a mock trial on the two officers that stopped, well, particularly one officer that killed his son. And they hold a mock trial. They bring the jurors there. The jurors are actually some of the inmates, nonviolent offenders that are there. One, of course, is a Hispanic male. And of course, the police. So they added some of the employees, those that were civilian occupations at the sheriff, at the police station. They got to sit in on the jury. And some things, and this is where a lot of people's criticism of the movie came in, where they mixed parts of intersectionality with it. For instance, where there's a part where Nate Parker's character is arguing as the prosecutor for his son, and there's a point where the female officer who was happened to be there, the female cop, she makes a reference about how hard it is being a woman. Of course, when they bring up the concept of racial profiling, and I think everybody we get upset because we know that our African American issues have to be treated with uh, distinct solutions and explicit out, and they have to be explicit because that intersectionality thing does not work for us. When we talk about affirmative action benefit black people, that benefits white women. White women are the ones who benefit more from affirmative action than black men because when they modified the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and added things like Title IX, for instance, in the 70s, in 72, 73, that created a great disadvantage to black men because now minorities, even though they are white, and women are technically the majority, but they're looked at as a disenfranchised class by law. They are added to that group. So being a woman on the force, and speaking to the officers who basically speak against the notions of racial profiling that go through that African Americans go through. And at one point, when he brings out that jury, uh, the jury of his peers, you know, the cop said who killed his son says, wait, that's not a jury of my peers. And Nate Parker's character brilliantly, excuse me, I'm about to say excellently says, welcome to my world, in reference to what African Americans, Black Americans have to go through in the criminal justice system. And they came in there, by the way, holding those guys hostage, guns ablazing. They had, uh, machine guns that were there. And during the scene, of course, eventually through the mock trial, it comes out, of course, the reason why they were beating. But Nate Parker's character brilliantly asked the officer what was the speed that they were doing. What was your speedometer? And they could not answer that question accurately. They lied within it. And finally, it just comes out that you were in a strange neighborhood, and that you guys wouldn't be there looking for trouble. So the officer point blank admits that, yes, he stopped them because they were black in a white neighborhood. And even though they tried to allege that you had an uninsured car insurance on a vehicle if they had run the tags, and he even said he had the card on him, but they chose to pull him out of the car. because they said it was unsafe. And they shot this kid 2 times, by the way. He was shot twice. Now, of course, in the jury room, they're debating, and they have one white woman. And oh, by the way, the intersectionality thing, they also had a dialogue between the Hispanic cop and the Hispanic inmate, where they're going back and forth with each other and want to be and all this other shit. And the inmate is talking to him in pure Spanish for the most part. And so the one white woman who's on the jury, well, the big fat white woman, she talks about how hard police have it and all of this stuff. It's a tough job. And my thing is, and why that dialogue is in, those are the things that we hear today about police shootings, about how tough their job is. Well, and the way I look at it is that this is what you do for a living. It's a tough job being a doctor, but if you're scared of blood, then maybe you shouldn't be a doctor. If you don't like arguing, going back and forth with people, perhaps, and you're a lawyer, perhaps you should consider another career choice, another line of work. I honestly like that dialogue that they had in there, uh, in the film. And in the penultimate scene, of course, he is found guilty, and they ask, what does that mean? And the Jefferson character orders the cop to call his wife and his son and speak to him. Like the justice. Now, here's my con part, right? He gets ready. He points the gun at him, and all the cops are freaking out. And they're going, no, 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 what are you doing? And of course, they're surrounded by SWAT and cops outside, snipers, and so forth, too, while all of this is going on. And he points the gun, makes him get on his knees after calling his wife and son, and he pulls the trigger. But there's no fire. And that's because he took the bullet out and said, that's just what that's what I wanted to do. And guess that's what he essentially was just doing, was pulling the trigger, as a way of relief, knowing that he couldn't kill this person or wouldn't kill this person. And that was a way for him. I guess this was kind of a way for him because he knew uh, it would be a suicide mission going in there. So obviously holding police officers hostage, and he actually when he goes and stops at that black captain's home, he pulls him out as the first hostage, and it's very interesting. And of course, you have the documentary filmmakers that are there with him the whole time, and he ordered them before they went into the police station to keep filming. And so the cop cries. Obviously he's relieved that he didn't die, but a lot of us were upset. A lot of people were mad at the film, and that's my con with it, that he didn't finish it off. I Looking at this though, remember, let me just show this to you guys. Nate Parker was ostracized from Hollywood for about 2 or 3 years as a result of accusations that he was acquitted on. He was acquitted for raping that woman, and yet he was still punished by the media, by the press, by members of Hollywood, by producers, and countless others, directors, who did not want anything to do with him as a result of as a result of those being acquitted. Now, that was my big con, and of course, I can tell you something. I kind of expected, or I was thinking something like that would happen, just because he's trying to get back in Hollywood, and also uh, Spike Lee is one of the producers, or is the producer of this film. This was also distributed by BET and Virtual Films, and I'm sure they had some say in what could be shown and what not. Remember back, if you guys don't know this, there's a movie that has never been released in theaters back in the 70s, I haven't even seen it, but I have heard of it called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. And in that film, uh, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, that was a character who essentially was in the gracious of, he worked in the government. He actually was in the good gracious of the man, as they call him, because that was the villain in those movies. And all the while he was doing this, he was also training and preparing his brothers and sisters for war. Uh, he was training Black America for war. He was actually working with groups, and of course, they did not want that movie to be seen in any theater across the country in the 70s. They thought riots would break out. Now, I'm glad I. Now, getting back to American Skin, you see they gave it 5.4 out of 10 stars. Not surprised by that. Um, Again, I praise the casting. I think Theo Rossi, he was the cop who killed his son. Or at least, no, he was not the cop that killed his son. It was Bo Knapp that was the killer. But Theo Rossi was played almost the public defender. Well, the public defender for Bo Knapp's character. Now, that was my big con with it. And then, of course, the other con is that, and you guys may figure this out again, spoiling. If y'all want if you want to turn away from the film, turn away from this video right now before we start talking about the film again and this ending, please do so right now. Now is the time. So that's Nate Parker there. So essentially, what happens is that uh, Nate Parker's character, they turn themselves, he starts to surrender himself. They surrender themselves, he and his group, including taking off their life vests, their bulletproof armor, as well as arming themselves. And he comes out with his hands up. And as he's walking out the door with his son, with all the others, including the hostages, the officer who killed his son, he tells the SWAT team, "Do not shoot. He is unarmed. He is unarmed." Basically, telling him he's unarmed, don't shoot him. But yet, when Nate Parker's character comes out, you guys can guess what happened to him. So he is shot, and sadly, that was the way the movie ended. Now, it ended before that. Well, before that, so it didn't end right immediately at that, but that's how his character's life ended in the film. And then what you have, of course, is how the news media spins it around, and they say, "Oh, he had PTSD. This seemed like a mental illness," and they had to spin that narrative. And I thought it was interesting that they immediately after that they cut to sports commentary, and he starts talking about this kid that can ball, a black kid who is a baller and so forth. And so, it was talking about college basketball. And so I immediately just think about that, what Nate Parker was doing. He was mirroring how our national media uh, not only spins narratives for ratings and uh, for indoctrination and propaganda, but then he is also calling to attention how this same media that treats black men disproportionately in the negative, they also do a 180 and raise these black men up to only because in sports only because they can make money for them. This is a game that they get paid to do, and well, they don't get paid to do in college sports. And in some ways, as I think there's a book on it, a lot of people have said a lot of these athletes are basically paid slaves. That's an old saying that I've heard, and you know when you look at the fact that some of our athletes are, I'm not saying that they can't speak, but those that want to speak don't say the right things, or they're too cowardly because they're going to lose money. They don't end up saying the right things, or they're silent on issues. Those are the type of things. We don't have too many Ali's anymore. And I think Nate Parker was throwing a jab at that at the media because in one breath you're praising black men who are making millions of dollars for your universities and your colleges and also for the NCAA. But then on the flip side of it, you change the narrative on this black man and disregard the main issues and poignant issues as to why he attacked this police station in the first place, which was the death of his son. And so the way that the film ends, and I spent a lot of time on it. I thought I was going to do 30 minutes. It's my fault. Starting late with the 11-minute. Well, it's technically almost 30 minutes, but I'm wrapping it up. The ending, of course, the young brother who was recording the film, he actually was the director of the that documentary that they were making on Nate Parker's son. They decided to go ahead and actually uh, he's holding a copy of American Skin. That was the name of the film, and he's holding a copy of it. And he decides to. It looks like he's going to release it because his character didn't stop filming the entire incident from everything that went down. So overall, if I had to, I would give American Skin. That's how the film ends. And who knows? I know Nicole was talking about this in her review. It I don't know if you could make a sequel from it, but you know, Hollywood, the in Hollywood, anything is possible. They can bring characters back from the dead. It might be something. It might be something where there's a continuation of it from a different perspective. You know, obviously the Lincoln Jefferson character. Uh, you know, it seems like he is deceased at this point, but who knows about Omari Hardwick's character? Uh, because he was in the film and he essentially was his character though too was dying of cancer. So as a result, he decides he's gonna go in with his homeboy since he was dying already. And I like the aspect. I like the fact that he was in that film. Um, I like the fact that, like again, I thought great casting, great production. Uh, you know, it mirrored everything that we are going through today. And as a result, I like that aspect of it. Now, what I didn't like, obviously, was the intersectionality comments. I thought, could they have done without it? Yeah, but then again, you're trying to sell it to mainstream audiences, so I see why he had to add that. I also see why they had that ending. So it doesn't surprise me why that was in there. So overall, if I had to give this a grade, my grade would be uh, what's up, Taisha, Purple Rain, Northern Bell. My grade for tonight for this film for American Skin would be B. I give American Skin a B. I think that it was a great film. I thought the energy, the aspect of it, the casting was great, but I thought that they could have done a better ending. Maybe we could have seen him do justice. And let me tell you another issue that I have with that aspect of it is that how is it okay that Jamie Foxx's character in Django Unchained, which was directed by Quentin Tarantino, his character gets to kill the white people. Now he didn't kill Leonardo DiCaprio's character. That was killed by his friend uh Christoph Waltz's character, King Schultz. But the main villain in the film, of course, with Django would be Samuel Jackson's Stephen character because he was the one that ran a plantation practically, and he knew from the beginning the game Django and Schultz were running on candy. So so his character could kill, of course, all of those white henchmen, but here you didn't get to see Nate Parker kill a cop for whatever reason. Now I know the reason, so it doesn't surprise me that it didn't happen. But I think a lot of people wanted to see it. Us black people wanted to see it. Uh, of course, it's not something that because it's not something that happens in real life. We don't kill police officers like talking about it. And his character in one of the poignant lines in the film when he was talking to his ex-wife, his ex-girlfriend, mother of their child, their son, when she's trying to tell him to stop, he says, "How come we are the only people that we are where? How come we're the only people that we are expected not to be violent when they attack us? Whites don't ask for permission to do things. They go do it. They seek justice. They kill people. They kill. They fight." And that's true. That is true. We are the only group of people that are expected not to do anything if you are attacked. He said, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the comments. Rosalind said, I never cared for or had an interest for the Death Wish movies, but mainstream Hollywood pushes it all the time. But they do whatever they can to block or sabotage Nate's Birth of a Nation and American Skin. Well, that's an interesting point, but I did watch. If you're talking about the original Death Wish movies like Charles Bronson and so forth, very interesting. I remember the main villains and what main villains in those films, the vigilantes, they were actually mixed, but they were actually mixed with a few blacks and whites in it as well, and it was whites that actually killed Paul Kersey's wife and daughter. Well, he killed the wife, and yeah, in the sequel they killed the daughter, but the daughter in the first film was raped. But young Jeff Goldblum, just interesting, played the main villain in that film. He wasn't the main villain, but that character in that film, um, which piqued Kersey's interest in guns, getting him back into it. But Hollywood does that because it's money. I think also the name Tarantino is synonymous with big bucks. They know it's critical acclaim. He's practically it wins or is at every Oscar. And I thought his last movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I thought that sucked. With the exception of a few scenes, I didn't think Brad Pitt should have gotten Best Supporting Actor. That should have gone to Joe Pesci for The Irishman. But Hollywood is Hollywood. Nevertheless, I thought American Skin, I give it a B. Certainly, that scene that Nate Parker had with his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend, where we're the only people expected to be nonviolent, I thought that was interesting, and I thought that was actually one of the best parts of the film. Certainly, at any rate, uh, who knows if he can do more? They have badmouthed this movie already, so just thinking I'm just thinking right now what will happen in Nate Parker's future because they're trying to sabotage, obviously, his work again when you just look at those reviews. I mean, a 5.4 for this film. And look, when this was made, this was in 2019. So it didn't come out in 2020. I don't know if it had anything to do with the pandemic, but remember, they started streaming movies once the pandemic started. What you guys think? Let me know if you've seen the film. What grade would you give it? So I think a B is fair. I just gave it a B because I know brother Nate Parker. He's trying to do his best with telling our stories, and he has to tread on water. He has to tread lightly. I'm assuming because opportunities are limited for a lot of black actors and directors out there unless you are already established and you have your own money. But a lot of people don't like spending their own money. So that's another issue. So I gotta see if I can get Amari Hartwick to come on because apparently too, looks like he's doing a lot of things. The Army of the Dead, Las Vegas. I know that's a movie coming on Netflix, but they're actually making a series out of it. So that might be interesting. You guys, let me know what grades you give American Skin. That was my review of it. Overall, I give it a B. The only reason why it's not an A is just because of the ending in the film. I thought maybe it could have been better, but even when I think about it, I think he wanted to commit suicide because uh, he knew he was going to die. He wanted to send a message about how America treats its black men and wanted to do something. And apparently, I think after losing his son, he didn't want to live anymore. And that might have been the reason why he did it. But overall, he pushed a message behind it and he got people talking. So I give it a B. All right. Let me take a quick break for a second, and I'm going to come back and do our next movie, which is One Night in Miami. So you guys stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Please, again, check out my podcast on Anchor, Gavin Richard Presents, and also the Patreon that's in the description that we have here, the Patreon account that I have in the comments. Uh, let's see, somebody has left a comment. Purple Rain gave it a C. I was really hoping for a better ending. Yeah, I think so. But I mean, again, when you're in Hollywood, there's a filter you go through still. You can't do everything freely like talking about it. So I think he changed it. And you say changing it for TV. Well, this was all streamed live. I mean, nothing, it was uncut. It was all rated film. So, again, I think when you look at the Django movies, of course, Tarantino has a little more clout. But you notice that Jamie Foxx got to kill Steven in the film. He didn't get to kill the main white man, which was Candy. That Candy was killed by the other white man. So you had white on white crime and black on black crime. Although what Django did wasn't a crime, it was self-preservation and defense. But yeah, so yeah, you guys just hang in there, give me a second, and we will be right back in the next minute. So just hang tight. You guys, let me know, Taisha, what grade do you give the film? Because I know you've seen it. So we'll be right back. Give me 1 minute, guys. Okay. right, we're back. Hey guys, I'm back. Of course, our next film we're gonna do a review on. This is fun to do. You guys, please donate to the channel at the Cash App, Gavin Reshaw Esquire, Google Pay, gavin.grich1@gmail.com, as well as PayPal with the same email, gavin.grich1@gmail.com. And if you have any videos or any topics you would like to send to me to cover, please email me and we can do so. Eating a little healthy, I'm eating a raspberry. So, excuse me. I'm trying not to chew while I'm on the internet. Our next film is the directorial debut of Regina King, aka Brenda. I remember her from Brenda from 227 and Brenda Jenkins. Yeah, that was classic. 227, Amen, and what else? Alf, Night Court, The Cosby Show, Different World. The 80s and 90s was something else, man. It's not going to happen anymore. Uh, the line of characters and actors that they had, Jack Kay and Sherman Hemsley and, uh, the great Marla Gibbs. Of course, Regina King was in that film, and I remember her because we all had a little crush on Brenda and Tootie, back then, of course. And, Regina King is making her directorial debut in this film. And I have seen this film uh, in posters and uh, flyers online. You look right here, even above Regina King's Internet Movie Database profile, and you will see their ads for the film everywhere. Now, I will play for you guys if you want the trailer for it. Uh, but that's Regina King. Yeah, Regina King. I mean, she just turned 50. Actually, doesn't look it. Doesn't look it at all. So 227 was a long time ago. But I have Amazon Prime, and this is her directorial debut. And it's been getting a lot of rave reviews and praises uh, based off the performance. Now, One Night in Miami is actually based off of a play that was written by a guy by the name of Kemp Powers. Kemp Powers is the one who wrote the screenplay for this film as well, and I believe he serves as a co-producer with Regina King. Now, I looked at the film. I watched it actually last night, and your actors in the film, you have, of course, Leslie Odom Jr. He plays Sam Cooke. I didn't have a problem with him per se. Maybe in the beginning a little bit because he was sounding, I didn't think he sounded like Sam Cooke, or at least even looked like him. I thought Sam was taller, but he did a great job. Leslie Odom Jr. and Eli Gorey is playing Muhammad Ali, and Aldous Hodge. This brother's a great actor. I saw him in uh, the Brian Banks story. He played Brian Banks. I thought he was pretty good. He's also been in uh, the WGN series that was canceled, Underground. That was actually a great show. A lot of people missed that show as well. Um, he plays Jim Brown, and I didn't have a problem with him. I thought Eli Gordy sounded a lot like Ali. Now, of course, the big controversy is Kingsley Ben Adir is playing Malcolm X, and Kingsley is a British actor, and so there was big controversy with a British actor playing a Black American person such as Malcolm X, an icon uh, in our culture, in our society, who was a foundational Black American, and it is something serious because Dr. King, which is Dr. King Day, and Malcolm X in particular, I've noticed in all of these films where they have had these autobiographies or these stories. Selma, for instance, that came on today. You had Harriet today. Those actors and actresses were all British. Now, he was asked, now, this is Kemp Powers. This is the brother that wrote that screenplay. He also is a co-director of the movie Soul. He was also a writer on Soul, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Soul, of course, I need to do a review on that. It actually was a great film. I overall, yeah, that's Soul. So let's start with the pros with the film. I personally, again, I thought the three gentlemen I mentioned, Leslie Odom, uh, Eldris Hodge, and Eli Gorey, I thought they did great. I thought Eli sounded just like Muhammad Ali, had his mannerisms and so forth. My main issue, though, of course, in the film uh, with One Night in Miami, and again, guys, this is a spoiler alert, but they tried to show Sam Cooke and uh, Malcolm X having a bit of an antagonistic relationship. Malcolm X, of course, condemning, putting down Sam Cooke because he's a black performer, not doing enough for his people and performing in front of white audiences, doing pop music when he could use his platform for better things. And Sam obviously takes issue with that throughout the film because in the film, uh, Malcolm is at the point where he's about to break away from the Nation of Islam, and excuse me, and normally I just look at how great the performance is, but the issue that many people, foundational Black Americans, have is that when they make these movies about our heroes, our young children are looking at Black Americans, not British Americans, the characters, the actual persons that were real. This wasn't a character. Malcolm X was a real person. And, when Denzel Washington played Malcolm X, and I was 6 years old when that film came out, that's still Malcolm X to me. And it's even funny because Denzel is not a tall person, and Malcolm X was about 6'4", but that's how commanding Denzel was as Malcolm. Uh, I remember when Mario Van Peebles played Malcolm X in the Ali film. And I certainly thought Ali in that film, I thought that the character Malcolm, I thought Mario Van Peebles looked like Malcolm X. Excuse me. So I thought he played Malcolm X. This guy, I'm trying, and I don't know him personally, but and I saw Tariq's broadcast. He said that he came across like he was playing Barack Obama. I disagreed with Tariq, but looking back at it and thinking on it, I could see how he could say that. I understand a little bit. I have a better understanding of why he would say that because Malcolm's character, uh, when they're in the hotel room and he's arguing with Sam Cooke, and even on the rooftop when they're arguing and he's about to fight, he comes across as uh, condescending, a little bit contradictory. Now, One thing I did like is there's a scene in the opening where Malcolm is talking about forming his own organization, and he's talking to Betty Shabazz, his wife, and the name of that actress is Joaquin Jaquina Calucango, Calucango, Joaquina Culacango. I believe that's her name. Okay, I think I pronounced it correctly. Well, she's been in Lovecraft Country, and it's my understanding she was in that Broadway play that's about the slave story, what Tariq mentioned. That play that we were talking about was a slave play. That was it. Okay, very controversial because it was like a Mammy Bedwitch thing, and I believe she was one of the actresses in that film, in that on that stage, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, she was. She played the Broadway version. Okay, so I have it for those that may be doubting me. This is actual footage. This is actual confirmation from Wikipedia. Let me pull it up for you. Hold on a second. Okay, this is Wikipedia. This is the role and principal cast. She was on the Broadway version. Okay, that's her. That's her name. So there's no mistake. This is an image of her. Tariq shared this. And I'm not knocking her because she's an actress. She's hungry. People will do. Yeah, but that's her. So people star in films and will do things that uh, a lot of, especially early on in their career, there are movies that and roles that some people will do and start off doing. I mean, people start off as extras and playing tough guys and so forth. And, shit, Clefton Powell made a career of playing bad guys. Nevertheless, slave play was messy. You're right, Rosalind. It was a mess. I never even seen it, but I have no interest in seeing it just because the nature of it, when you see a black woman grabbing on a white man like that, especially when it's supposed to be uh, in the antebellum period during uh, before the Civil War and so forth, it just makes my stomach churn. It's just like, nah, yeah, yeah. So, you know, again, the British brother, he actually sat down and did an interview with Blacktree. And I remember Regina King, there was some flack from something she said about uh said about British actors playing American roles. It reminds me and it mirrors what happened with Samuel Jackson some time ago when he complained about the fact that all of these rappers were getting all of the roles that actors were dying to get and couldn't. A lot of actors and act not allowed to get those same roles. I mean, shit. Cardi B, I saw just got a damn new movie role. Cardi B is not an actress. Remember, Beyonce used to get. She doesn't do them as much. Well, she still gets them, but she gets movie roles. I mean, Dream Girl. She had the Fighting Temptations before that. She's not an actress per se, but what's the issue? She is a celebrity. She is a pop star. She is a celebrity. Tickets. It's about putting asses in seats. It's about making money. It doesn't surprise me that that they cast her, and obviously it doesn't surprise me that Cardi B gets it. But there are a lot of brothers and sisters who don't have those type of who wish they could get those types of roles, and unfortunately they don't get those. So itself, I want to see if I can play that interview that he did with Black Tree on playing Malcolm X, and he's the star. I don't know what films he or other work he has been in. This was what he this happened a couple of hours ago. They uploaded this on Black Tree where they talked about his.
Be familiar with more of your work, but you're a new face to me, and I was a little skeptical when I seen this new face playing such an adorned character as Malcolm X. But your performance like earned every bit of that casting, and that decision was like the perfect decision. How? What did you learn about Malcolm X that we haven't seen in the autobiography, or that we haven't, seen in the depictions that Denzel and has played? Like, what did you learn in Miami?
Do you know what I learned that blew my mind is that Malcolm said to Dick Gregory around this time, this very specific time when there was his relationship with the nation was coming to an end, and his relationship with Elijah Muhammad was crumbling, and his life was becoming in danger. And he said to Dick that he felt weak, he felt hollow, and that no one knew the torments that he went through around this time. And like that just blew my mind. Like, and Dick described Malcolm. The Malcolm in private, the Malcolm
He
who was
looks
Dick's friend.
now. He doesn't look like Malcolm X in without that makeup. Looks not like Malcolm with the makeup on, but uh, he had the look down. I'll give him that.
Friend,
They put the
the
makeup on.
father, the husband. They described him as sweet and bashful, kind, good-humored, a gentleman, and a comedian. Like, so that was my way in. And even before I read that interview with Dick, Regina and I spoke about, before she cast me, the importance of like tapping into Malcolm as a human and his decency, and like he put his life on the line for Black people, man. He risked it. He died for the cause. Like this, he was serious about what he was saying, and he just really, you get to at the end of a project like this, you spend as much time with Malcolm as I did, listening to him, watching him. It's really hard when it comes to the end, because it's like, damn, he's gone, and like him and Sam would both be dead within a year of this, this night. Like, him and Cash never spoke again.
My style now. Come on, just because you can't see bugs don't mean they ain't in the house, Sam. On this dirty ass roof. Why don't you be like Bing Crosby about that shit, man? Accentuate the motherfucking positive. Look at this view.
Now, of course, all of this stuff with One Night in Miami. Let me just get to this because I was trying to see what brother would say. I don't want to play the whole clip and take up time, but I wanted to get where he was going to talk about British actors playing Black characters because I haven't heard it yet, and I wanted you all to hear it. But one thing I will say about the film, as far as the cinematography and direction, my praises for it. My compliments. I thought it was great. I did think the acting was great, but there was an issue I had in the beginning to get back to the sister that played Betty, where they threw Minister Farrakhan under the bus in the opening scene. Now, it's been come to my attention, Tariq Nasheed brought this up, that Amazon was one of those groups that kicked the Nation of Islam and kicked Minister Farrakhan's uh, products off. If I'm not mistaken, they were behind his ban. I'm not sure about that. Tariq brought it up. It wouldn't surprise me, but of course, mainstream media and does not like Minister Farrakhan at all. We know that. They have been very hostile towards him. And I talked about this the other day on the last live stream with Bernard, how Trump's social media was reinstated, whereas our beloved, where Minister Farrakhan's uh, mainstream Minister Farrakhan, I'm sorry, social media platform. It's a long day, guys. Excuse me if I'm stumbling. His social media is suspended indefinitely. It's been terminated. So I see the hypocrisy in regards to how Minister Farrakhan is treated versus Donald Trump, per se. But nevertheless, let's continue. And continuing that conversation with that they had to throw him under the bus with, because there's a scene in the beginning where, again, spoilers, where he is trying to recruit Minister Farrakhan into his organization. And, uh, how he says Farrakhan, or Louis X, as he was called then, flat out rejects him and says something, and Betty claps back at him. And Malcolm tries to say, no, no, we don't do that. And in the film, too, they show how it seems more it's centered on Malcolm as the central character, but they all show different aspects of these actors. Uh, the one thing and one scene that really jumps out to me was when Jim Brown, excuse me, Jim Brown is going to the home of this wealthy white man. I believe he's if I'm not mistaken, in the film, he's played by Bo Bridges. And he meets his granddaughter. First, he walks in, greets and shakes hands with the granddaughter. She's pleased to meet him. And her grandfather, played by Bo Bridges, I don't know if he's in Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken, or he's actually, I think he's a wealthy donor, if I'm not mistaken, that wanted to meet him. And, Jim Brown is from Georgia. I think this took place in Georgia, this scene. And they're drinking lemonade. They're talking about things they love, about football, about uh, being in the NFL, how he's doing his acting career. And Bo Bridges' character mentions how he's moving some things. And to that point, Mr. Brown, Jim Brown's character, even jumps up and says, well, you know, let me give you a hand with that, sir. I should be the one to help you with it. And, I'm able to do so. He said he ate that, but we don't let niggas in the house. So after all of that talking that they did, bonding over sports, over football, over Jim Brown. I'm sorry, he went to excuse me. Yeah, how Jim Brown went to I said Clemson, but Jim Brown didn't go graduate from Clemson, but he graduated from Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken. College Football Hall of Famer, yes. So he's from St. Simons, Georgia, right? So all of that talk, and it's perfect. The reaction by Jim Brown's character, the Eldest, who's played by Eldridge Hodge brilliantly, just his face completely drops at that moment. The guy walks back, nothing. But it goes to show you what they thought of Black people, despite their talent, despite their efforts, despite everything that they did, what they truly thought of men like Jim Brown. Sam Cooke as well. In one scene, they talk when he's performing at the Copacabana, and people are walking out when he gets on to perform. He's having difficulty with the manager, and bringing his band on, performing in front of everybody, and so they completely ignore Sam. And that's one of the things he goes through. But of course, and that's in 1963. They all show these guys doing different things before the 1964 fight that Cassius Clay had against Sonny Liston. Now, let me see if I can go ahead and play the Kingsley Ben Adir sings about playing Malcolm X.
Life story documented in my words.
Okay, now he looks like Malcolm. Y'all see that
And you must
picture
have. And
with the red wig
I
on?
asked Regina about the casting. She said best person, best actor for the job, and I agree. But of course, we heard this conversation come up with Cynthia and Harriet, and when British actors. And I had this conversation with Steve McQueen also. When British actors are playing these African Americans here, have you ran into any other, and how do you I mean, what do you say to those people that have that feeling that you guys are a different kind of black, or that you're not American black enough? Or, what do you say to that? I don't. This is not my feelings.
For sure, no, I completely understand, and I noticed questions coming, and it's like, this is a conversation that is unpacking as we speak, and we don't know. We're in the middle of this. Like, we're in the middle of trying to figure out like representation and who should be playing who and who shouldn't be playing who. And I can talk about this from a casting point of view, and like each casting process is different. Every film has its own different casting process. There was someone else lined up to play this role, and they pulled out. They to find her Malcolm. There's a thing of availability as well. Like, all of the best actors, they're busy all the time. Like, this was a really specific instance, and and Regina, it took a long time to cast me. Like, I was waiting for weeks, and I convinced Regina that I wasn't scared of this, and I understood who Malcolm needed to be in this story. I persuaded Regina that I was confident and
okay
for the challenge, and and I had to trust her instinct. The opportunity is too big. I threw my hat in the ring, and and the rest is history. But I get it. This is a big conversation, and representation in all senses. This is something that we're right in the middle of, and it's important that we keep interrogating and we keep discussing these things. And it's not going to be comfortable all the time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing it up, and yeah.
Well, great job, man. I mean, that was really a
So,
standout performance.
I appreciate that brother's response, because he was honest. He basically says, I need a job, practically saying, I need a job. I want this job. I get it. I appreciate his response. Now, Ashton, you said some will argue that, well, FBA brother Forrest Whitaker portrayed Idi Amin, and Denzel Washington portrayed Stephen Biko. Well, remember this, though, too. We don't have a say-so in regards to, this is directed by Regina King. And when we have, obviously, Black directors at the Black helm, Black American directors, it's important to see Black American actors. And so some people could counter that by saying, well, back then Denzel played Stephen Biko, there may have not been any major Black actors or South African actors. I'm not going to say major, but Hollywood wasn't obviously thinking of that when they made that film. This is something that Amazon put on. And also, speaking of producing, this is the first scene I saw that made me think this was going to go south. Now, you guys, sure, my analysis on the Sam Cooke murder. Now, again, I praise the casting, the performance, the acting, and overall was great. Even Michael Imperioli, who was Chrissy from The Sopranos, he plays Angelo Dundee, Angie. The guy who was in The Walking Dead, I can't think of his name, but I think the character was Stucky, the one that was screaming "Tainted meat, tainted meat." He plays Jim Bundini Brown. That was Ali's corner man who Bundini Brown. Uh, but let me show you guys the first thing on the screen here that I knew. So who are you? If you all are familiar with my analysis of the Sam Cooke, uh, not trying to play the film. I don't want a copyright strike. But look who's producing this with Amazon. All right, pause. Abco. Abco Films. Yes. And we know Abco was and is the company that still owns the rights to Sam Cooke. When I say own the rights, they actually own the rights to his entire life, rights to his image, his likeness, his music. They produced this film, and they produced the film because without it, without Abco, you cannot put any reference to Sam Cooke in a film. The documentary that I showed you, Lady You Shot Me, they could not put any of Sam's music into that documentary. So this is the company that Alan Klein created. Abco owns all of Sam Cooke's music and royalties, music publishing, and any artist that was under Sam Cooke's record label, SAR, back in the 60s. They own all of that. So they co-produced this film. That's why a change is going to come is played at the end of the film, and I want to talk about that in a minute. In the next right now. So yeah, Abco Film. So that was Purple Rain says, wow, I didn't know that. Yes. And Alan Klein, of course, he was one of the main reasons the Beatles broke up. He was also the reason why the Rolling Stones don't perform any of their old songs because he owned all the rights to those. So very interesting that they were producing this film, but it doesn't surprise me. But they're in the film industry, and their documentaries are part of that. Now, what I want to get into too is that when I mentioned the antagonism between Malcolm and Sam, he's trying to get Sam basically to write something powerful. And in the film, uh, they play Malcolm arguing. Malcolm plays "Blowing in the Wind" by Bob Dylan uh, for Sam, and basically complaining how a black man can't write a song like that when that song should have been made and written for a black man during these times. Now, the main issue I have with that is that Sam, number one, they make that as the inspiration why Sam Cooke wrote that song. And it was not, although it was a part of that. From my research and understanding, if you go look this up yourself, back in 1963, a year before Sam died, December of 1963, Sam Cooke had stopped at a hotel in my home state. And they were staying at the Holiday Inn and trying to make reservations for his wife, Barbara, and himself. And when his group arrived, the desk clerk glanced nervously and explained there were no vacancies. And I'm assuming that there was a no vacancy sign already flashing because that vacancy sign, excuse me, that was flashing vacancy. No vacancy was flashing vacancy. uh, they decided by what the group looked like to protest, but to come up with that bullshit that there was no room at the inn, essentially because they didn't want niggas to stay there. And that's the bottom line. And Charles protested, his brother, and Sam was furious. I'm reading from Wikipedia. He yelled to see the manager and refusing to leave until he received an answer. His wife then nudged him, attempting to calm him down, telling him, "They'll kill you." To which Sam responded, "They ain't gonna kill me because I'm Sam Cooke." You see, Sam, I'm not gonna say he was arrogant, but he was very confident and full of himself. He wasn't scared of nothing. And eventually they persuaded Cooke to leave. He and his entourage persuaded him to leave. They drove away, calling out insults and blaring their horns. When they arrived at the Castle Motel on Sprague Street downtown, the police were there waiting for them and arrested them for disturbing the peace. I take it the Castle Motel was a colored inn. The New York Times ran a UPI report the next day, headline Negro band leader held in Shreveport. But African Americans were outraged. In 2019, then Shreveport Mayor Adrian Perkins, he just ran for United States Senator against Bill Cassidy here, apologized to Cooke's family for the event and posthumously awarded Cooke the key. I'm reading this from A Change Is Gonna Come. See, I'm bringing my resources. In addition, upon hearing Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind in 1963, Cooke was greatly moved that such a poignant song about racism in America could come from someone who was not black and was also ashamed he had not yet written something like that himself. However, his image and fears of losing his large white fan base had prevented him from doing so. Cooke loved Dylan's song so much it was immediately incorporated into his repertoire. He was further influenced by the message of the dream in Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech at the Civil Rights March on Washington that year. So, in 1963, following Christmas, he invited J.W. Alexander to his home to preview a new song he had just written, one Cooke was very excited about. He ran through the number on his guitar twice, the second time going over it line by line. So he actually had this written around the time the fight had actually in Miami had actually taken place. So they tried to make it seem, I doubt, and I'm sure, yeah, Malcolm could have been antagonistic with, my girlfriend was telling me this about how, well, your best friend can be antagonistic. That's how the relationships are. And I'm like, yeah, it could be, but again, the guy Malcolm came off very condescending. But within that, essentially that became the basis for why Sam wrote A Change Is Gonna Come. And then in the film, they have another scene where Muhammad and Malcolm are, eventually almost come to blows. Muhammad actually almost attacks Malcolm because Malcolm announces that he's about to leave the nation. And it's also come out that they are also, Sam and Jim are nervous for Cassius because he's about to declare that he's a Muslim, and which he did declare the next day, but they make it in the film that he declared it that day in Miami, that day after the fight. But it was the next day when the story ran that he was joining the nation. And he even did an interview with, I believe it was Howard Cosell, where he stated that his name now was Cassius X. And eventually, a few days later, he changed it to Muhammad Ali, which was given to him by Elijah Muhammad. So they almost come to blows over that breakup. And they also show Malcolm's home, the end of the film. Jim Brown, they show Malcolm's home being firebombed. Jim Brown retires from the NFL, uh, which he did to pursue his acting career. And even Cassius Clay or Muhammad had announced that was going to happen. And I think Jim didn't want him to announce that just yet, but they told that to Sam and Malcolm, uh, what was going on. And I think overall, uh, you know, Sam was, like I said, when he's a very confident person, he was staying at the Fountain Blue Hotel in Miami, not at the Black Motel, because his Alan Klein actually had arranged uh, for him to stay there. So it was a very interesting story overall. Sadly, they leave it on a note where Sam performs, and this is true that Sam Cooke did perform. A change is going to come. Uh, a change is going to come in 19 uh, on the Tonight Show. And they ended there when Malcolm's house is firebombed. They showed Muhammad getting his new name, and they showed Jim Brown retiring. The problem, though, too, even with the factual aspect, is that Jim Brown actually retired in July of 1966. This is supposed to be set in 1964. So again, that was a factual error that they had, which they tend to do in Hollywood. Um, and then, of course, when it ends on that positive note, Malcolm is in a hotel with his family, listening to Sam sing "A Change Is Gonna Come." And the truth of that about that is that he did perform the show, the song on the Tonight Show, and sadly, there is no known recording of that song. Now, when he recorded that, that was on February 7th, 1964. And persuaded Sam to do away with promoting his most recent single, to do away with it and promote "Ain't That Good News" and perform. And Cook was against it. He decided to sing it. That was a song that he sung, and sadly, there's no known footage of that. Uh, I wish there was, because back in the day, the Tonight Show, they never taped their performances. Sadly, so when it was lodged by the NBC timekeeper, they lodged it. They called it "It's a Long." They didn't save the tape of the performance, which sucks because that's the only time we ever see Sam Cooke. We would have ever seen Sam Cooke perform that live. He's not performing it. He did perform it later that year, and sadly, uh, 11 months later, and again, this is another factual thing. Malcolm was assassinated in 1965, not 1964. So he actually had a change that's going to come before the Ali fight. So people don't know that. Now, I just want to give you all some facts so you guys can see this yourself. I know you can't read. Let me zoom in. But yeah, he performed it February 7th, 1964. The fight takes place February 25th, 1964. So Sam actually had this before. So I'm sure I'm not going to say that Sam didn't have conversations with Malcolm about civil rights. That would be, uh, I would be damn naive, so damn naive rather, to think that they didn't. I'm sure that it did come up, and I'm sure they had conversations about how they could use their platform to help others. And Sam even claps back at Malcolm because, Sam was at a position more than Malcolm to take care of his his family than Malcolm was. Malcolm didn't have a necessarily a job per se, but he did, speak for the nation. And even Sam was calling, when are you going to speak for yourself? So they took these jabs. I noticed that, and I was like, they were taking jabs at the nation a little bit, especially with the Farrakhan matter, trying to make Farrakhan, antagonistic. And we, we know that Hollywood is known for doing that, and Hollywood fictionalizes a lot of things to make the film dramatic. Uh, the timeline fit for the story that they're doing. So there are things that are taken as fictional, and of course, in the beginning it says inspired by true events. So I don't doubt again, yeah, that stuff happened, but how it went down, I don't believe that was the case. And so Hollywood sucks. Well, this is what it does, but you know what? This is what our actors and actresses got to deal with now, and directors until we build our own. And we got to keep it going. We got to build and donate money to those black directors in Hollywood we want to see, and black screen quality scripts and so forth. So overall, my pros, the performances were great. I think the actors and actresses did a fine job. Uh, I thought that again, they I had issues with the errors and facts that they had. That would be my comment. Regina King's direction was great. I'll give her props for that. I give the actors props for that, for their performances. I certainly thought the brother who played Jim Brown, I have no issues with him. He was my favorite in the film. And Ali, I thought, did a great job. I thought the guy that played Ali, uh, Gory, he did a good job. And even brother played Malcolm, I think he did good. I'll give him. I'm not going to knock him. And overall, it was a positive film in that it showed black men in a positive light. So for that, I'm not. I'm just, and I'm going to give it a B minus. Okay, I didn't necessarily like how they portrayed, try to portray Minister Farrakhan and the things that, of course, the continuity errors that were in it. Uh, I I guess you could say, am I being picky with it or not? I don't, maybe, but I don't know. I took issue with it. That's just how I felt. So that's why. But because it was a positive film, this was Regina King's directorial debut. The actors in the film, the central actors, I give them props because I overall, they could have done it maybe a little bit more and get away from some of the dialogue, perhaps a little more backstory into, uh, especially for each person. But this was set from a play. Again, this was based off of a play. So when it's a play and you have the playwright writing the screenplay, he's going to take directly from his play. Of course, he's got to add some things in it. And one thing I do want to point out, though, too, with regards to that antagonistic relationship, that remember this too, Sam Cooke was killed before Malcolm was. And that's very important. Sam Cooke was shot, and they mentioned in the end that Malcolm, a quote Malcolm gave about being a martyr for the cause 2 days before his death. And that's something they don't bring up because Sam was killed 2 months before Malcolm was. And Sam was, even from my understanding, he had been talking with both Dr. King and Malcolm X about coming together and was in a position to do that. And he talked about it, how he was the music publisher for his company. And Bobby Womack wrote, a song that didn't chart hot on the Hot 100. I think it was like 92nd, but when the cover was done by the Rolling Stones, and this was a great line in the movie, how Jim Brown said, "Oh, Muddy Water," when they made the name Rolling Stones, they said, "Oh, Muddy Waters Group," because that was based off of Muddy Waters' song. Uh, that's the impact that black musicians have had on your white superstars. But those black musicians like Muddy Waters and Lil Walter and Chuck Berry so much, but even he got robbed. They all got screwed in some way, shape, or form. But it shows you the impact that black people have played in America. So One Night in Miami, I give it a B, B minus at best. I thought There were some positives. Again, it showed black men in a positive light for pioneering black men in a positive light, and I appreciate that. Uh, Again, some things could have been different, but if I asked you to go see it one night in Miami, I would say go ahead and see him and make your own decisions about what you think. You guys tell me in the comments what you think. If I'm wrong for making these picks and for these grades, I think they're perfect. My grading was great. I personally believe that. But anyway, guys, I'm about to wrap it up. You guys in the comment section. So that was my review of first movie review. I really enjoyed doing this with you guys. American Skin and One Night Miami. Again, I can't stress it enough because we're talking about changing things. Please donate to the channel. Cash App, Gavin1 at gmail.com. PayPal, Gavin.G1 at gmail.com. Patreon. If you want to be on Patreon and support me, support my videos that I drop out there and also my podcast, please, that is the link right there at the bottom to the Martin Luther King video I did about the assassination of Dr. King. You guys can check that out. Excuse me while I get some water. That tastes good. You guys, I gotta get those one. So you guys be safe, be blessed. What did y'all think of the films? Let me know. Leave a comment after you have seen the movies. Just let me know if you think that my grade was correct or not. How did you feel about the films? Those are some things I would like for you guys to talk about too. Uh, but again, shout out to everyone. Thank y'all for tuning in. We're probably gonna do another one. I think we're gonna do one Wednesday. I'm gonna let you guys know with Dr. Carmen Johnson. I'm gonna try and reach out to her because I believe she's in DC right now with regards to the inauguration that's coming up. And right now, I know DC is on edge. The nation is frankly on edge because of these. That can help about these extremist groups that are supposedly going to be doing rallies on the state capitals in protest to the inauguration of Joe Biden as 46th president in relation to the 2020 election. So, everybody, please, right now, if you have not, and I did this live stream with Brother Johnson, you saw it. If you have not gotten any ammunition, if you've not gotten any firearms of anything, it is now the time to do so. If you can find them, go to uh, buy stuff online while you can, because in a while you may not be able to get it. Things are flying off. Self-defense. I can't stress that enough. It's better be safe than sorry. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Y'all be safe, be blessed. Check out those two films and let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll holla. Peace.